Hello, my soul family. How are you all? And I hope you are doing great, wonderful, amazing, and safe wherever you are in the world. I welcome you all in my channel. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel, for giving me lots of love. And I am very glad that I help you out in some manner. If you have not subscribed yet to the channel, then please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and please let me know in the comment section if you want to tell me anything, and you can ask me anything. So let's start today's video. So this is part number 2. In part number 1 we have discussed a lot of things. So for those who have not watched part number 1, you can go and watch part number 1 first. I'm going to add a link in the description box. So in that video, in that part number 1, we get to know that we have to unify our stations of identity and its layer of consciousness through time fields, through dimensions. Okay, and this is actually known as unification of our consciousness, because as we have reincarnated again and again, and we are present in many of the timelines. So whatever has happened in that particular timeline event, in that timeline event, our part of consciousness, our stations of identity, our important part of consciousness is being station is being present over that timeline. Okay, so there are a lot of historical timeline trigger events which has happened, and in that events there are a lot of traumas, wounds, fragmentation which has happened. Okay, and now we are learning how to integrate and merge our parts of consciousness from different dimensions, from different timelines, and from all of the historical timeline trigger events. So basically we are calling our fragments back. Okay, we are calling our jewelry, wings, bodies, okay, the light bodies, we are calling these things back. Okay, we are calling our consciousness back from all of the historical timeline trigger events, and we are doing it by using a command which is known as return to rightful owner command, which is also known as RRO or RTRO. So, as I told you in part number 1, that we have to discuss first all of the historical timeline trigger event first, so that we can be able to understand that which is the historical trigger timeline which is actually replaying in our present timeline, in a present life. Okay, what are the traumas, what are the wounds, what are the bodies and consciousness which are being stuck in that timeline, and we have to call them back. Okay, so for that thing we have to understand first what are the timelines, and we have to know about them first, so that we can easily call our fragments back. And in the end we are going to know the command, the affirmation by which we can call our fragments back, by which we can call our consciousness, jewelries, okay, the wings, and our bodies, the light bodies, the higher bodies back. Okay, so for, as I told you, for those who have not watched part number 1, you can go and watch part number 1 first. So in that part we have discussed till timeline, Sumerian Babylon massacre. Okay, this is actually a event where which we also called as Babylon massacre. Okay, which happened in 3470 BC. So before part number 1, we have already discussed these things in the Atlantean conspiracy. We have discussed there were actually 25 parts in that part, in that series. Okay, so I have already add a link in the description box in part number 1. Okay, for all of the historical trigger timelines which has which has happened, and we have already discussed in detail, okay, before also. So you can watch those videos to know exactly what has actually happened in that particular historical trigger events. So we are going to discuss anything which has been left, or a little bit think about these trigger timeline events, because in deep we have already been discussed these events, and I'm going to add a link in the description box again for all the historical trigger timelines which we are going to discuss now in part number 2. Okay, so for those historical trigger timeline events, if there is anything which is been not discussed before, or anything which has been left, or any kind of implants or alien machinery which we have not discussed yet, then we are going to talk about in detail in this part. Okay, so let's start today's video, and we are going to start from the event which is known as Djoser invasion. Djoser invasion happened in 2668 BC. So basically, it has happened, and it is called as Saqqara invasion. Saqqara basically is there in Egypt, and Saqqara is actually having a gateway that was used for ascension to leave the Earth planet, because Saqqara is having a, I can say, a portal. They are having the gateways. And these gateways are called as escape portals. You can escape immediately from the earth dimension, from the earth plane. Okay, from the third dimension you can escape immediately. So basically Saqqara is very important place. Okay, so there was actually a invasion which was happened in Saqqara from 5D wormhole, and it has happened, the infiltration was happened. This portal was take over by the dark forces, and they have used the blood sacrifices, and they have used the advanced SRA underground for power. So this was actually a violent and bloody invasion, because it was intended as a genetic holocaust made against the people in this region. Many of them actually were directly connected and related to the guardian families that were working with the inner earth and inner stargates, and working to repair the grid damage that occurred from the previous holocaust, from the previous catalysm. Okay, so they, in this timeline, what was happened, that they had been killed and tortured for the blood sacrifice, and they were direct descendants of the avian races. Okay, the bird races, basically the carrion races, the Ceres races, the Ceres royal houses from the Lyra, and many had Anu bloodlines. Okay, others were the 2D Grail keepers were there. So what was happened in the Djoser event, we have already discussed in details, and I'm going to add a link in the description box. But what was actually happened, we are going to discuss a little bit in this video also. So Djoser was actually Enoch. Okay, so what was happened is that Galactic Federation, Luciferian and Jehovah's Anunnaki, they infiltrated Saqqara, Egypt. Okay, with Pharaoh Djoser and their Luciferian Knights Templar super race and Medianate races of Israel and Sumeria. Okay, so the Ceres Egyptian Lohas Atlantean Grail King Pharaoh Imhotep, okay, deposed in peaceful surrender. So what was happened is that there was an invasion which was happening, and Djoser, who was actually Enoch, okay, so Djoser went to Imhotep and he said that let's make a deal with me. Okay, you don't you think that it would be great if you make a deal with me, if you surrender to me, because I will not kill your Magi Grail bloodlines. Okay, I will not kill your, okay, I will not grill you, I will not kill those race lines, and I will become the king. Okay, the pharaoh, sorry, I will become the pharaoh of this region. Okay, and you will be my advisor. Okay, so Imhotep surrender, because it was like Imhotep remained with the Dozier, as it was like lesser of the apparent evils, because if the other dark forces who were present in other regions, they come in that area. They were going to kill all of the Magi Grail king lines. Okay, they were going to kill all of the Guardian races who were present there. They were supposed to kill all of those races, okay, all of those lines. So what the Imhotep think, that let's save our race lines, okay, let me surrender to the Djoser. And this is how the Djoser become the pharaoh and the Imhotep become the advisory. And because of this was the reason why Imhotep was having every single knowledge of building pyramids, maths, okay, everything. He was having the knowledge because he was the real bloodline, okay, the guardian bloodline. He was the Emerald Covenant, because of which he was having all of the guardian teaching knowledges with him. Okay, so that's why this was happened, because as I told you, there was another group which was called as Marduk Anunnaki, okay, Dracolian agenda invasion. They was actually progressively advancing from the Babylon, and they were killing that part. They were killing the races actually, and they were doing the takeover thing. So this was actually happened in the Dodger event. Now let's talk about the next timeline, which is called as Dead Sea Conquest. Okay, and it was happened in 2024 BC. So this was a war in region to maintain the control in the Middle East. Then destruction of many cities in this area actually happened, and Essene groups actually tracked down, and they were killed. Okay, they were massacred, happened in these areas. So basically, Galactic Federation and Luciferian Anunnaki races, they steal the Ark of the Covenant box and the tools again, and they launch the world dominant campaign again in Babylon, and they extended it into the Dead Sea area between Israel and Jordan. Okay, they destroy Sumerian cities once located in the Dead Sea areas. And actually this event, the Dead Sea Conquest, this event is recorded as the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible. Okay, this event is actually recorded as Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible. And Magi Grail king races, they retrieve the Ark of the Covenant gold box and the tools, and they prevent the spread of Anunnaki world dominance again. Okay, so now let's talk about the next historical trigger timeline event, which is called as Hyksos invasion. Okay, Hyksos invasion and Exodus, which was happened between 1670 BC to 1550 BC. So what was happened is that Hyksos line, actually one thing is that Hyksos line were actually a race of Jehovah Anunnaki and the Dracolian. Actually they were the gene codes of Hyksos line were actually a race of Jehovah Anunnaki plus Dracolians plus human genetics that were used by the Luciferians to attempt to conquer the Middle East for Stargate control. That was the Iran Gate. Okay, so that was actually a Hyksos line. Okay, and now the Saqqara negative, the dark forces who were present, the Saqqara, okay, the Saqqara negative alien agenda forces, they infiltrate the Egyptian pharaoh lines through Thutmose, Hyksos, which was intended takeover of the Temple Mount and massacre of human tribe number 2. Okay, there was a battle for control for Grail tools and the Grail Stargate. Okay, and there was a Stargate takeover through the Ark technology. There was a genocide of human tribe number 2, and the Hyksos line, they attempt to take over through the King Solomon, and the dark forces, they destroy the temple and the holographic grid. So what was actually happened in this timeline was the Medianite Hyksos king Jehovah Anu Melchizedek, they crossed with the Luciferian Knights Templar Anu Melchizedek from the Saqqara Egypt Djoser lineage, and they infiltrate the Egypt from 2668 BC, and they finally take over the Egyptian dynasty as Hyksos king in 1670. Okay, BC. And in 1550 BC, the Dracolian agenda pharaoh Ahmose deposes last Hyksos king pharaoh Khamos. That leading to 1476 BC Hyksos exodus under the Dracolian agenda pharaoh Thutmose III. Under Galactic Federation uh, disruption, Hyksos intended to invade and destroy angelic human Hebrew tribe number 2 in Israel. So this was actually happened, and we have already discussed these events before also in detail. So as I told you, so that I am going to add a link in a description box for all these timelines. Okay, now the next timeline was called as Israel Crusade. Okay, so it was happened in 1459 BC, and here in this timeline there was a genocidal campaigns to eliminate all the humans with Essene Templar knowledge and tribe number 2 genetics in the landmass of the Israel. Okay, basically this was intended to claim Israel as their promised land as the beginning of intended global domination, pole shift, Luciferian covenant agenda, which was happened here. Okay, so this was actually happened here in this timeline. So now let's talk about the next timeline, which is called as Hatshepsut invasion. Okay, Hatshepsut invasion was happened in 1458 BC, and this was the event where the Hatshepsut hides the arc portal technology. She was actually protecting the portal system from the Thutmose Dracolian controlled brother, and finalizes the Hyksos, forcing them out from the Egypt. So basically, the Ceres Egyptian Magi Grail King Pharaoh Queen Hatshepsut of Egypt, she receives the Ark of the Covenant gold box and the tools from the desert Magi Grail kings after they stopped the Hyksos Israel invasion. So her part Dracolian half brother Thutmose III, he invades the Hatshepsut temple and he steals the Ark of the Covenant gold box. Okay, now let's talk about the next timeline, which is called as Akhenaton. Fall of Akhenaton, we called as fall of Akhenaton. This was the timeline which we called as 1353 BC. It is happened in this timeline. Akhenaton fall and murder. So what was happened is Akhenaton hates politics. Okay, he was actually working for human law of one ascension timelines. He transits out many trap souls. He attempts to overthrow of Amun priest, child, and blood sacrifice rituals, and 2D portal rips apart. There was many family murderous plot which was happened in this timeline in his family. There was a character assassination campaign which was happened in this timeline. So basically what they done is that Akhenaton embodied as a Syrian Anunnaki Templar guardian, which used the opening portal systems for ascension occurred while attempting to move out trap souls from the Atlantean Catalysm and the Lemurian Holocaust portals. So he came, okay, and he attempted to enter the Hyksos Egyptian king line into the Ceres Egyptian Magi Grail line for the Galactic Federation, Hyksos Emerald Covenant entry, and Hyksos Genetic Bioregenesis program. So he came as a bioregenesis program. Okay, and Pharaoh Kenton, he failed in his intended Emerald Covenant mission in the favor of Anunnaki Luciferian agenda and killed by competing Dracolian agenda uncle. Okay, Galactic Federation defeat from the Emerald Covenant, defects from the Emerald Covenant in from this timeline. Okay, so what he does was that he opened the portal in the 2D underworld, which created the time and space rips, manifested incredible damage to the planet and her elementals and natural kingdoms. The damage made to the planetary field created multiple problems with human soul fragments, soul reversal, subconscious shadow personalities, and many souls were sucked through the black hole, unleashed harmful forces into the higher frequency plans. So there was lot of thing which was happening in Akhenaton timeline, and there are a lot of videos which we have discussed here, and you have, I can say that you should watch this timeline because there are a lot of souls who were there in this timeline, and from this timeline there were a lot of things which was changed. This is very important timeline in the historical trigger timeline events. Okay, Okay, so let's talk about the next timeline, which we called as destruction of the Solomon Temple or fall of the Solomon Temple. There was a genocide of human tribe number two. There was a takeover which was happened. The Ark of the Ark technology, Grail Stargate. They want to take over, which was done. Hyksos line. They attempt to take over through King Solomon. The Dark Forces. They destroy the temple and the holographic grid. Okay, so what was happening in this timeline is that the king Solomon, which was actually a Hyksos Anu Melchizedek plus Ceres Egyptian Magi Grey line, which was the son of Hyksos King David, is guided by the Galactic Federation to use the stolen Ark of the Covenant gold box tool to destroy the Hebrew angelic human tribe, two races of Israel, to claim the promised land and advance the global domination. Paladin series Emerald Covenant races of Elsion, they intervene directly with the beam ships intending to teleport Ark of the Covenant gold box and the tool out of the Solomon temple and return it to Magi Grail King protection, preventing Solomon's assault on Hebrews and the advancement of the pole shift agenda. Galactic Federation attempts to teleport the Ark of the Covenant gold box to their Paladin ships but miscalculate, destroying the Solomon temples completely with a photoradionic wave beam. So Paladin series retrieve the Ark of the Covenant gold box and prevent the pole shift agenda. So this was actually happened in this timeline. Now let's talk about the next timeline, which we called as Iron Age. Okay, Jesus Christ mission. So this mission is was actually a Jesus Christ mission, and this was a timeline which we called as Iron Age. Okay, so Cyrus B. Christos mission to there was a Cyrus B. Christos mission to repair the Giza and the Stonehenge stargates. There was a timeline repair grid work to prepare for the ascension timeline and reculmination of the Christos diamond sun body in 2012 timeline. So this timeline, when the Stargate's opening cycle was going to happen in 2012, okay, there was a I can say preparation which was started from in that timeline. Actually, the Jesus Christ is a Syrian blue human from the future that came to change the third dimensional timelines. Okay, his group mission was under the direction of the High Lyran Syrian Council, and his basically group mission was to work with the future Earth 5D Tara multidimensional Templar crew, which we called as Azurites, and bring the Essenes and Christos Templar and the Law of One Ascension knowledge and its consciousness technology back to the planet Earth. So this mission was in response to the DNA damage the planet and the humanity had most recently suffered after the Lucifer rebellion and then after the Sumerian Egyptian uh, invasion, which was the final destruction of the mother staff principle in the earth core. Okay, as a team they were working with repairing the planetary architecture, doing the soul retriever from the Lemurian holocaust, the Atlantean catalysm. They were actually preparing the ley lines, they were doing the planetary grid work. Okay, they were doing the planetary gates. Okay, they to help the aligning for the ending of the ascension cycles in 2012. Now let's talk about the next timeline, which we called as Council of Nicaea. Okay, and Council of Nicaea. This is the event which we are going to discuss now. The negative alien agenda and the Luciferian Knights Templar. They cover story to hide the Christos mission. Okay, and the humanities, the star origin, and they make a false alien god worship religion and the blood sacrifice based religion that become the canonized Bible. Okay, this was actually the Jehovah's collective. Okay, and the Jehovah's collectives, which we called as the bipedal dolphin people, the Jehovah. Okay, the Jehovah's collectives are the engineers of the crucifixion implants, and they help to design the Bible with deceitfully techniques that could fit in the narrative of their violent religion based on the blood sacrifice of the Christos. Okay, now let's talk about the next next timeline, which we called as Roman and Dracolian invasion. So Dracolian infiltrate the Greek sacred texts in Italy to build the Church of Rome, and they spread the negative alien agenda of religious mind control through Catholicism. Termination of Christos' mission was happened in this timeline. There was a collection of Maitreya's blood which was happened. Now let's talk about the next timeline, which is called as the rise of negative alien agenda, world religions, armadillo mind control software. Okay, so basically, religious violence is promoted through the mind control in the planet to trigger the events into the armadillo software. Okay, that's why they do the religious violence. Okay, understand, try to understand this very important point. Okay, this is a intentional spreading of violent world religions based on satanic blood sacrifices, holy wars, worshipping alien false father gods. Armadillo mind control is actually linked to Atlantean catalysm and the human genocidal campaigns. Now, what is the Armadillo software? Armadillo software is a mind control program such as wars, terrorisms, epidemic diseases like pandemic, okay, like C virus, like catalysms, like fears, okay, or many other fear programs which can be interchanged as they are similar bio warfare mind control programs that are actually used on earth to suppress and control the human consciousness by propagating artificially generated false timelines. And this is used through their false gods and false fathers, satanic religions, to use SRA, which is satanic ritual abuse, uh, to repeatedly enslave, kill, and torture the humans through religious violence, military control, through terrorism, war, and population control. Okay, it is the enslavement companion mind control system which is activated through the crucifixion implants in holographic inserts which are embedded in the planetary body and in the human bodies. Okay, now let's talk about the next timeline which we called as Arthurian Grail quest. Okay, Arthurian Grail takeover and section invasion. So this was an invasion of UK to take over territory and 11th Stargate. They killed the Templar Grail King Arthur and his support team, and he was the last benevolent Magi Grail King line. Okay, not king line, he was a last benevolent Grail king. Okay, false king of tiny replaces the rulership king. Arthur is in the status in the UK related to the awakening Albion and status beings. Okay, so basically Albion is the oldest name for England, and the names for Scotland in the Celtic language but also related to Albion. Okay, so um, there is lot of things which we have covered in the videos beforehand only in details, so you can go and watch those videos. Okay, that what was happened in these timelines, because there are a lot of things which we have discussed before also. Okay, so I'm not going to discuss all of those things again in this video because we have to complete and know more things, okay, which we have not discussed yet in these videos. So please go and see the description box and check those videos and watch those videos. Now let's talk about the next timeline, which is called as Dracolian Christian Crusade. Okay, so what was happening in this timeline is there was a violent religious wars which is used for human blood sacrifice, soul binding, and feeding the crucifixion implants and the Maitreya's blood alien machinery in the earth. It generates the black heart systems and anti-life reversals on the grids. Okay, now let's talk about the next timeline, which is called as Cathar genocidal massacre. So Albigensian crusade carried out by the Church of Rome, Cathars were trapped and they were burned alive in the southern France. Okay, they were burned alive in the southern France. It was attempt done to eliminate the Essene Templar knowledge outside the control of the church. Okay, now let's talk about the next timeline, which is the American Crusade, which is called as Native American Holocaust. So, Native American Holocaust and America Crusades, this was the elimination of indigenous lines that had Templar knowledge of Earth grids. They were actually setting up the secret societies in USA for the global control in this timeline. Okay, now let's talk about the next timeline, which is called as Niburian intervention or the NRG implants. Okay, basically sexual misery mind control. I can say that this is called as sexual misery mind control NRG implants, which is Nephilim reversal grid implants. So the negative alien agenda galactic federation, they starts to contact their lineages for challenging and propaganda for preparation for the new age. Okay, there was a sexual misery which is known okay, we have already discussed what is the meaning of sexual misery, but actually let's talk about again the sexual misery is intentionally reverse, okay, distort, manipulate and abuse the sexual energies, therefore abuse the spiritual energies. Okay, so sexual misery mind control and implants for harvesting the human creative sexual energies and alien hybrid breeding programs. Okay, now let's talk about the next timeline, which is Aleister Crowley, which is black magic grades mainstream satanism. So Aleister Crowley was a negative extraterrestrial contactee and abductee by the Grey alien contact made in Cairo, Egypt in April 1904. Okay, so negative alien agenda alien abductee cooperates with Zeta infiltration of Earth grid networks, and they set up the satanic black magic blood sacrifice and portals that become the human energy harvesting networks. Enoch and Thoth Anunnaki Thelema language was done set up here, and OTO, which is Ordo Templi Orinatus, which is actually a secret society which was set up here in this timeline. Now let's talk about the next timeline, which is Zeta alien surveillance or abduction and the breeding programs. So what was happened is that Zeta cooperate with the Orion groups for the negative alien agenda takeover agenda and human enslavement and territorial control. Zeta make covert treaties or covert agreements with world governments and allied forces during World War II, and they have done this in order to reproduce their own race lines, because zetas, as we have already discussed, that these are the races who are on the blink of extinction. They are making the clones, they are doing their clones. Okay, they're making the cloning of their genetic race lines because they are already being extinct. There was a war which was happened in on their planet. In that war they have already become extinct. Okay, so they are doing the cloning of their genes, and majestic 12 were set up to further administrate to these treaties. Okay, and there were Montauk project, the Philadelphia project. Okay, so basically zetas were are interested in breeding programs so that they can create these zeta human hybrids in order to maintain the control over the earth in the future timelines, because in the future timeline there is a timeline in which they have already controlled the future timelines, and for that timeline to happen they have come towards the past. So for zeta this is the past timelines, and they are coming back into the past timelines to do the necessary changes. Okay, so that we cannot ascend, and that future timeline is going to that future timeline will happen according to zetas, and for us they are coming from the future timelines. Okay, so what they have done is that they zeta seals, they have put the seals, okay, which is called as zeta seal. The zeta seal is located in the astral plane layers of the heart complex to block the activation of the fourth DNA strand, which blocks the access to the mentor field, which is the first layer of higher self, the higher mind in the fifth dimension. And it is the 4D frequency fence placed in the human body to keep the human soul reincarnating in the astral plane under the control of the negative alien agenda during the death process. Okay, it creates a multitude of blockages that separates the heart sensory abilities from being recognized by the mental body or the conscious body. So mentor field, what is the mentor field? Basically mentor field is actually a higher self observer mind, that is a higher mind, okay, which is an intelligent energy body that is activated between the 5D and the 6D, okay, between the archetypal mind, which is the 5D mind, and the celestial mind, which is the sixth dimension mind of the upper soul matrix. And the mentor is the intelligent higher mind of the soul that can be attuned to communicate with the monad and Christos, which is the 12 planetary time cycles in the triune of the universes. So one cannot communicate with the monad or the Christos until the mentor takes over from the lower three layers of the ego. So zeta seals is actually, we can say that the zeta seals are the 4D frequency fence in the heart chakra, which creates the scrambling between the heart transmissions and the brain receivers. The historical military links as well as the connection to the gray aliens or the Milab abductions are related to this timeline. It, if a human being cannot activate their heart and access, they cannot access their soul identity, okay, they thus they are unaware of why they incarnated on the earth, what is their higher purpose, and why, and they cannot connect to and they cannot listen to their higher self because they have not activated their HSP, which is higher sensory perception abilities. So the zeta seals are also related to the military industrial complex timelines. And this technology is injected, sprayed in many military related areas, ceremonies, or any kind of military exposure. Okay, there is lot of okay, there is a lot of this splitter technology, which is AI encoding that run as a mind control script that is embedded into a variety of the types of media such as written words, spoken words of an infected individual, video or audio recordings that can pass on that same script code to the another person that resonates with that same frequency or information. And the zeta c, that's still operating in the 3D public. So this technology is injected, sprayed in many military related areas, as I told you, ceremonies and any kind of military exposure. Okay, now let's talk about the next timeline, which is called as Black Sun Program. Okay, this was world war, satanic ritual abuse agenda, and world wars. Okay, why these world war happen? And behind the world wars there was actually a black sun program, which is black sun programs are the draconian race lines agenda, the reversed 10 strand DNA templates. Okay, they were actually poking holes in the earth's protective grids. The Orion and Zeta groups, they orchestrate the world wars so that they can weaken the electromagnetic frequency, the EMF, nuclear bombs, and infiltrate the portals by ripping the holes in the time space fields. Okay, so basically there are two things which we are seeing right now in the current timeline. Okay, there is one thing which is called as one world order, okay, and the other thing is new world order. Okay, the one world order is black sun version, which is, in other words, these are the draconian agenda. Okay, the next agenda and the next order which we are seeing is the new world order, which is actually the Bellal Sun versions. Okay, which is the Luciferian agendas. Okay, so whenever you see these two words, okay, the New World Order or the One World Order, so there is a difference, okay, between these two orders. So one, the both of them are the fallen race lines, but the one group is called as the Dracolian agendas, and the second group is the Luciferian agenda. So right now we can see very clearly that they are saying that there should be one earth, one religion, okay, one thing, okay, this is called one world order. Okay, so this is actually the Dracolian agenda, the Black Sun version, which is called as this new one world order. Okay, so now let's talk about the next timeline, which is called as Majestic 12 and Zeta Gray Alien Trade Agreements. Okay, so in this timeline, the Zeta, they contact the world governments for military technology and the human trade, and the Gray Alien weaponry, holographic inserts, and the timeline technology. They implanted thoughts like a uh, human brain waves, okay, and the behavior could be influenced and controlled through the exposure to light and sound or the electromagnetic frequencies. Basically, agreements were made in exchange for access for the human genetics, okay, breeding programs, and the earth resources. So they made these agreements here. Now, MJ12 or the Majestic 12 is the code name of the alleged secret committee of the scientists, military leaders, and the government officials. They formed, okay, in 24th September 1947 by an executive order by US President Harry S. Truman to facilitate recovery and investigation of alien spacecraft. MJ12 was a committee set up inside the National Security Council. So MAGI, okay, MAJI, which is Majority Agency for Joint Intelligence. All information, disinformation, and intelligence is gathered and evaluated by this agency. Okay, this agency is responsible for all the disinformation and operations, and operates in conjunction with the CIA, NSA, DIA, and the Office of Naval Intelligence. This is very powerful organization, and all alien projects are under its control. Okay, so the Magi is responsible only to the MJ12. Okay, the Magi, the Magic, okay, the MAGIC is the security classification and the clearance of all alien connected material projects and information. So magic is equal means Magi control, means Magi plus control. Okay, MAGI, Magi. Okay, so this is the timeline. Now let's talk about the next timeline, which is World War II. The Nordics, the human blood sacrifice grids, which was happened. Okay, so after the World War One, sophisticated machinery and implants were inserted into the planetary fields, and which was designed to capture the souls and blood sacrifice for the negative alien agenda during the world wars, during the killings, and this was actually a perpetuate war economy and world slavery which was happened. Now let's talk about the next timeline, which is the Nazi infiltration, which was happened. Okay, so Nazi infiltration, psycho spiritual war on global population, and MK Ultra. Okay, so Orient controlled Nazi groups, they go underground, infiltrate the power elite and intelligence group, Nordic alien technology, and SRA experiments to mind control the public. They learned the helplessness. That means, that is, the pupil has learned that it is helpless in situations where there is a presence of painful and negative stimulation, and has accepted that it has lost total control, and thus gives up trying to do anything to change it. Okay, so this is called as pavilion conditioning, okay, which means subconscious programming by extremely low frequency to generate the victimization, bullying and threats, survival and poverty consciousness, violence and destruction, sexual misery and gender confusion, all fear based programming to produce predators and unstable minds. This keeps some people mentally triggered and feeling personally offended by nearly anything that they may feel threatening to their ego's sense of self. So when one has control over the thoughts of one mind, one has a control over the direction of actions of the physical body and all of its parts and reclaiming of the soul's energy. So whoever controls the mind controls the soul, as I told you in the part number 1 also. Mind control is used to form socially accepted belief systems, okay, shape value systems to which are used to control the masses to enslave themselves on the planet Earth. God, religious violence, gender issues, financial and debt enslavement, consumption modeling, that is taking, stealing, and superimposing of and using the another energetic resources of life force for one's personal use, personal gain. Usually, this process of taking or stealing the energetic or other resources is hidden in deceptions, lies, and manipulation through the mind control. So, this is a core programming of the negative villain agenda to enslave the planet Earth and humanity through the corporatency, which is actually economic and political system controlled by corporation or corporate interest. So genetic modification of foods, okay, chemtrails in the air, oil and gas dependency, pharmaceutical drugs, lack of pure of drinking water, debt enslavement, fear over the financial future, poverty, terrorism, and the war are all examples. Okay, misogyny, which is called as hatred or dislike of women or girls, sexuality are the most mind controlled and manipulated belief systems promoted by the negative alien agenda and their human power allies to control the enslavement and vampirism of humanity and the planetary resources. Project MK Ultra, which is actually a CIA mind control program. It is actually a numerous methodologies to manipulate the pupil mental states and alter the brain functions, including the secretly administration of drugs, especially LSD and other chemicals, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, as well as various forms of torture. I am going to give you one example, okay, and by this example you can understand what is MK Ultra. Okay, you can watch a movie called Spiderhead, which is available on Netflix. In that movie there's lot of things which is shown, which is actually what is actually happened in MK Ultra. Okay, so you can go and watch that movie. So now let's talk about the next timeline, okay, which is called as Black Operation, Secret Space Program, Space Colonies, and the Human Trafficking. USA government broken off into assorted secret interest groups to research, study, and hide alien contacts and alien technology from the public. Okay, galactic human slave trade becomes highly organized, and there was two organization which was organized in this timeline, which is called as MILAB, which is military abduction, and the second organization was DARPA. Okay, DARPA is Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. So they are responsible for funding the development of many technologies which have a major effect on the world. Okay, so now let's talk about the next timeline, which is Orient Group intervention. Okay, so Orient groups recruit more reptilian races to join with the negative alien agenda to prepare the final war over timelines in 2012 to 2017. Okay, now So I'm going to stop this video right now here because it's almost 1 hour. So we are going to meet and discuss all remaining historical ticker timeline events and return to rightful owner command in the next part, that is part number 3. So sending you lots of love, healing and happy energies to all my soul family who are watching my video. Take care of yourself and I will see you all soon.